We'll give it a couple of minutes, as always, just to let people log on.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, we're in.
Smashing it. We're professionals. Oh, look. Hi, Pauline.
Hi, Pauline.
Yes. You absolutely nailed it. So, guys, there is going to be, good evening. There is going to be a slight delay of about 15 seconds-ish we've worked out. So if anybody's got questions, we will get to you. And if we don't take it personally. We'll answer them in the week. Or at least I will. Giles doesn't want to.
Joker. Oops. What am I doing? Leave it alone, Giles.
Emily, hello. Hi, Jean. Alex, hey, man. Hi, Deborah. She's on now. She's found us. Hi, Gail. It's lovely to see you on. I can hear and see you both, mate. This is magic. I can't believe it. Can't believe it's working.
I can't see the comments for some reason.
Turn your iPad up to landscape. Not landscape, portrait. Hi, Mina. Nice to see you. Hi, Tony.
You'll have to marshal the comments, mate.
Fine, I will. But like I said, guys, for those of you that have just logged on, there is about a 15-second delay between us and you. So if there's any issues, then just write in the comments. I am keeping an eye on them. But worst case scenario, and it doesn't work out, and technology fails us, then we're recording it and I'll post it. I'll post it tomorrow so you can watch it. All right. So me and Giles will just keep talking and pretend that you're there. My mum's logged in. Hi, Mum. It's my biggest fan. Cool. So we'll give it another few seconds and then we'll get rocking and rolling. Hi, Lisa. It's lovely to see you on. I believe you know Giles already. I should call you Dr. Giles, really, shouldn't
I? Dr. Giles. It sounds weird, doesn't it? Doctor and then first name. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't.
And I love it. We were saying the other day, I love it how it's Dr. GP, your initial.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And I've never been a GP. In fact, I got failed on my GP placement. I did 2 GP placements. I got failed on the first one because I took so much time off to go for surgical interviews. I couldn't get his head around it. So he failed me. And then the next one I aced because it was really nice.
So there we go, an official doctor in the house, guys. Normally, see, look, I feel a bit, I'm wearing my t-shirt, I've got my pajama bottoms on, normal Sam, and then I'm talking to a doctor with a shirt on.
Oh yeah, I dressed up special. No, I've been away for the day. I've only just come back.
So
nice lunch.
Right, guys. So, hi Tina, hi Claude, hi Cindy. Good to see you. So let's get started, mate. I think that's the best thing to do. So guys, what I wanted to do this evening is invite Dr. Giles, who's a good friend of mine. We've done some coaching together. He's become a very good friend of mine, even though we've not actually ever met. I think it won't be long before we do. And Giles is just somebody who, I think, the way I would describe it, who's just kind of, he's like one of those guys that you always feel like you've always known and you've always liked, and you probably will always know from when you meet him. You're kind of like, yeah, it's just going to be in my life now. I think that's just one of those things, Giles. Sorry, mate. And I really wanted to get him on here because Giles has a way with words like nobody I've ever met. And he's such a genuine and emotional and very strong guy. And I wanted to get him on to kind of bring up the subject of waking up, waking the F up, which is the whole point in this group, is waking you up to your experience, waking you up to where you're stuck, waking up to the rest of your life so you can do what it is you want to do. And I kind of wanted to bring him on just to go ham. All right. So we're not going to hold back. This interview is not for the sensitive ear. It's not for people who aren't ready to hear this. We're not going to, I've already said, we're not censoring ourselves. We're going to go all out on this one and just kind of say it how it is, lovingly and kindly, but very, very powerfully, hopefully. So Giles, let's keep to tradition, just a standard interview format to start with. I would love for you to give us 10 minutes in the life of Giles in 5 minutes.
10 minutes in the life of Giles? Oh, good grief. Well, no 2 days are the same. That's the beauty of doing what I do, I suppose.
Tell us about you, mate. Just tell us about Giles.
Okay, potted history, psychology graduate, and then trained as a doctor. seduced by the dark side, went and became a surgeon. Did that for a few years. Started specialty training in orthopedics, bones and joints. And then stepped away from it, stepped away from clinical practice, variety of reasons. Had a lot of other things that I wanted to do. Woke up a bit to the fact that the model I'd been holding for years, which was get a good job, get a whole lot of get status, get a whole lot of money, get a whole lot of stuff, was going to make me happy, and I think I clocked that was bollocks basically. So I had a fairly fairly low threshold for moving on from that, just because I was drawn to other things. So I spent like a decade and a half out of clinical practice, having various career adventures, and sort of my own health IT consultancy, and really love riding bikes. So went off and worked for my favourite cycling magazine as a wordsmith. It was great getting paid to ride my bike all over Europe, and helped my wife open a shop. We got that set up, and now it's kind of come full circle, I suppose. So I trained as a coach, and I'm back in the healing profession. So, you know, taking up the old doctor mantle again. It's funny because it's been a bit of an insight that I've had, another waking up, if you like, that I've had recently, when someone challenged me to describe how what I'm doing isn't practicing medicine. I was like, oh yeah, no, you're right there. It was like one of those moments. So yes, I do continue to practice medicine, but in a very different way, because like a bit like Sam, I'm interested in the root cause. The root cause of the symptoms that people present with. You know, obviously, I'm not going to be off out operating on people in the wilderness. That's not what I do anymore. But you know, people come with all sorts of things, and there's a common thread to all of the symptoms that we as humans turn up with. And if you can trace that all the way back to a misunderstanding about where our experience comes from, and so that's where I work now. So I'm a true generalist, if you like. Not many of them around anymore, but yeah. So yeah, in terms of my life, a day in my life, I live in the Brecon Beacons. We moved here 12 years ago because it's lovely, and still ride my bike, but I do more walking these days because I've got hills all around me, hills on my doorstep. So I take most of my clients, wherever they're from, if they're in the UK, I make sure they get on a train and get over here and come out for a walk in the hills with me, because as far as I'm concerned, if you're gonna wake up to reality, why not surround yourself with reality? And we've got it, loads of it, right in my back garden. So yeah, that's pretty much me. Was that 10 minutes? Who knows?
Yeah, there or thereabouts. It's nice. I'm not timing you. Fine. Put you in my little mark it down. Basically, I score each interviewee, see if we'll have them back on again or not. Anyway. So what I loved about what you said, Giles, and this is a question I think maybe other people want to know as well, is, you know, you've gone from this kind of this real kind of almost cognitive background, right? So very much on a doctorate, working with people, and I love the word you used, healing. So out of curiosity, where you're at now, which we'll come on to a little bit more in a minute, but where you're at now, how would that have changed you being a doctor or being a surgeon?
Yeah, surgery's a funny one. I think about surgery, and it's such a kind of like it's such a mechanical thing. You know, it's like you can't deny the fact that somebody's worn their hips or their knees out, and you know, nothing heals like cold hard steel. But I guess what would be different these days would be I'd be quite interested in people's experience of pain,
Mm.
people's experience of physical pain, because I mean, I've since sort of coming into this understanding that I'm sure we'll get to, the whole physical side of things has always been a bit of a black box for me until I walked 42 miles from one side of Wales to the other, and boy was that painful. So I really like in the moment reflected on what was actually going on, and my experience of extreme foot and leg pain, while undeniable, I was still I was the one who was experiencing that pain. I wasn't the pain. That was my body, and the way that the way that I saw that experience, is something that I have a choice about in the moment. And as it was, I fell out of my thinking for long enough to have the insight that, well, what would I do if I was walking with my 5-year-old daughter and she was moaning like I was moaning to my mate, oh my god, my legs hurt, oh my god, my feet. I think I got mute, actually. I was in so much pain, and it suddenly occurred to me, what would I do to help it? I'd sing a song. We'd sing songs. So I just started singing songs. I just started belting out songs at the top of my lung. Luckily, there were no other walkers around other than my mate, who's quite used to me doing things like that. The experience of the pain in that moment, was totally different. Was totally different for a good couple of miles. I'd say I barely noticed it because my state had changed completely just from stepping back from the experience, just from that moment into that gap between stimulus and response, and having a new thought.
You use the words falling out of your thinking. And that, I know that will have intrigued a lot of people in this group because it's something we talk about quite a bit, falling out of your thinking. Can you tell me what you think that is? What does that mean? Like, where do you go when you fall out of your thinking? Because we're talking about true self, but we might as well bring it out now, right?
I don't know. I kind of have. I have almost a physical sensation. I've always ground my teeth. Like I've ground. My daughter does it too. You can hear her grinding away in the night sometimes, and so. And if I ever get like a tension headache, it will be because I've been, like I just clenching my teeth. And so for me, like falling out of my thinking is almost like I feel my jaw relax, and I almost picture myself literally coming down out of my head, just coming down out of my head, and literally letting go of whatever was going on in my head at that time, because it's like it set off an alarm bell somewhere. It's been like a little lights come on the dashboard. Advertised by feeling, because as far as I'm concerned, thought and feeling are the same thing. There's no thought without feeling, and there's no feelings without a thought. So I'll have a feeling, and it will be like the light coming on the dashboard, and it'd be like, hey mate, you're going nowhere here. and so it's yeah, like I say, it's just kind of like letting go. Maybe I'll take a deep breath, but I'll remember, oh, hang on, I remember what's going on here. I remember the way that the system works, and I'll sort of come down out of my head and just let go of it. And it kind of, for me, when you're churning, it's like it's a very practical thing. Like nothing can get in, nothing can get through. It's like static on the line. Like nothing new is going to get in when it's all going no up there. And just to let go of that for a minute, just to let go of it. That's when you make space for the new thinking to come in, and your common sense and your wisdom to just shine through.
Lovely.
Well, how about you?
What about me?
Yeah, well, no, same question. What does falling out of your thinking mean to you?
Hang on a minute, who's been interviewed here? Can't throw that back at me. I've got this all planned out, mate. I think for me, falling out of my thinking, what always occurs to me is that once I've experienced a thought, it's already passed. It's kind of like we're experiencing this form of a thought, right? And a thought is kind of like it's a metaphor for something we've already experienced, but yet we hold on to it. It's like, I need to do something about that. You know, oh God, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling scared or nervous or depressed or whatever it looks like to the person. I really feel that. You know, for me, it was always nervousness. It was kind of constantly holding on to it. And so I started to see that before that thought occurred, there's an experience, a place where it's created from. And it completely changed my life. Completely changed my life, because it just allowed me to drop a story, drop belief, and I started to experience truth for the first time in my life. Like, and if I didn't know it yet, I still knew what I needed to know. And I was just in that kind of sort of real present moment, and it's just amazing. So that for me is when the thinking falls away, it never actually falls away. We're constantly experiencing it generally. But then we do have our moments of clarity, right? We have these moments where, and that's when you know what to do. That's when you just know what's next, whatever it is, you know what you know.
I mean, it's like this idea of a flow of thought is so helpful, because like you said then, you know, once it's there, it's there. There's no going back. You can't push it back in, you know. It literally only goes one way. It's going from the formless into the form. You know, something's not there, like literally not there at all, and then all of a sudden it's there. And it's going to be replaced by the next thing that's coming through immediately after that. And it's a flow. It's a flow. It's a constant unrolling. And so it's funny that we do kind of like attach to the stuff that's already come out. It's floating around in there somewhere. It's like, well, I mean, I was out with somebody the other day, out with a client, and another reason I coach outdoors is because there's so many metaphors for reality out there because it's all real, and they were talking about being kind of like stuck on a particular thought, like that just kept coming out, and I was like, well, look at the clouds. Like, have you ever seen two clouds the same? Like, it's not natural getting stuck on the same thing, and it's that, isn't it? It's like it's come from the formless into form. Yeah, whatever, let it go, wait for the next thing to come in.
Yeah, exactly that, man. And what always gets me is that when I get up in my head, you know, like Dick and Bettinger calls it uptight, but like cut off on the neck up like this. It's just, it's not even remembering. It's that natural kind of state of and just experiencing that clarity again. Oh yeah, because what's always occurred to me is that once I've kind of had that thought, that's who we all think we are. Well, that's who I used to think I was, right? So when I was being my most anxious, worried, scared, nervous, whatever, stressed, all those thoughts I was having, I'm not good enough. I need to be less anxious. I need to be more of a man. I'm, you know, all this stuff, right? These thoughts that were just coming from this innocence, this kind of innocent ego that was only as old as my body, right? Whereas my wisdom is as old as the universe. I mean, who would you listen to? But I was blissfully unaware. I was innocently unaware, right? And until I realized that those thoughts weren't me, they weren't the true self. They were just the ego. It's kind of like an understanding of what the self is, and it's not true. And I was like, wow, so I can just watch that story and I have to do anything with it. I have to do anything. I could just leave it. Oh, I'm right. I'm all right. It's like, shit, I'm all right. And it's just, yeah, that was the game changer for me.
So when you were talking then, I had the image. It's something that came up the other week with me in one of my own coaching sessions. I did vascular surgery. I loved vascular surgery, which is all the, you know, like arteries and veins and stuff. And when you've got when you've got an artery and you eat chips and crisps for your whole life and you get like atherosclerosis, you get these little atherosclerotic plaques, you get like these little growths of lard on the inside of you, and they go like quite crispy, because I've seen them and I want to like, and so when there's a flow through them, when there's a flow down that vessel, when it hits one of those atherosclerotic plaques, it creates turbulence. So what's downstream from that atherosclerotic plaque is turbulence. And because this plaque, this blockage is there, and it's a particular shape, the turbulence that it creates is a particular shape as well. Okay, and it stays that shape. So if you were to be able to put a dye down that vessel constantly, you'd be able to see that because there's that blockage of that particular shape, then you're always going to get this particular shape of turbulence. And it's like your thought, or our thoughts of who we are, it's not even one thought, because there's this flow of thought through our lives. It's the same thought being created over and over and over again, moment to moment to moment to moment. And if there's a blockage of a particular shape, then it's going to create turbulence of a particular shape, which is, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. And so until you get to look at the blockage, and I don't know whether the analogy falls apart there, I can't even remember what we used to do for these things, but yeah, no, that's what came up when you were talking about, it's not that it's one thought, it's that it's the same thought being created over and over and over again. So remove the blockage, bang, it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, mate. I love the analogy as well, because it's those analogies really help to understand. It reminds me of something that Michael Neal said when I went to see him up in London with Dick and Bettinger, and he said he used to think he was suicidal. And I don't know why it made me laugh. It shouldn't have done, but I've got a dark sense of humour. And he did say it in jest as well, so it might offend. And he said, I used to be suicidal. And he said, and then one day, when you start to understand this stuff, I think he was doing some coaching with Steve Hardizan. And he said, I realised I wasn't suicidal. I was just having lots of thoughts about suicide. And what he was kind of indirectly doing was pointing towards true self, saying, well, it wasn't me who was having suicidal thoughts. I was just experiencing thoughts of suicide. And I fucking love that, because it just does everything to explain the true self remains untouched. The true self, love, God, whatever you want to call it, is always okay. So I'd love to know, Giles, with all this stuff, because as well as I do, one of the things I love doing is opening people out and talking about the impossible. Right? And that really is what Wake the F Up is all about. It's all very well kind of grounding, but my heart always gets pulled towards creation, which is kind of one and the same, really, isn't it? But just for argument's sake. So I'd love to know, what is and I know you've asked this question, but I'm going to ask it for the group's benefit. If you had all 7.5 billion people in front of you in the world, all 7.5, they're all listening to you like this. This guy's amazing. And whatever you say, they will hear. What would you say to wake the world up?
Sometimes feels it's hard enough getting the feel for a room full of 30 people, let alone 7.7 billion. I just had a whole load of thinking then about, fucking hell, that's a lot of people.
Responsibility, shit.
It's that we, if we're going to stick with that flow analogy, it's that we as human beings are not experiencing the world outside us. We're experiencing the world as it's being created, as it's going through us. That it's inside out rather than outside in. We're not living in the feeling of our circumstances, however however persuasive that illusion looks. And boy, is it persuasive. We are actually living in the feeling of this perceptual process that's going on. I'm always doing this because it's like that. It's I feel, it's like it's that coming through. It's that coming through. That's what we're feeling. It's got nothing to do with what's going on out there. That's raw data. That's a string of ones and zeros that's coming in through our senses, and our brains are trying to make the best sense of it that they possibly can, and giving us a best guess. And it makes mistakes all the time. It makes mistakes all the time.
I love that, mate. And isn't it? It's fucking mad, isn't it? Like, you really think about it. If you think about, honestly, this is what gets me going. Right? This is why Wake the F Up has to be global. Right? 7.7 million people better be prepared. But isn't it mad though how all of these thoughts that we have through learnings, teachings, experiences, so on and so forth, right? And they keep coming, they keep experiencing them constantly. But they're not who we are. That's not the true self. It's just that's the thought that we're experiencing in the moment from ego or whatever you want to call it. All of our habits, our addictions, our beliefs, limitations, all of that stuff comes from that.
Mm.
All of it, right?
Sounds really glib. It sounds really glib, doesn't it? I mean, I'm there telling my 5-year-old. I'm there telling her, when she's bawling her eyes out and she's, stuck on something and this and never that and ooh, and I'm like, that you're okay, you're fine, like you, who you actually are, is fine. And it, sometimes it feels a bit glib, and you can't, you can't just go up to people in the street and say, "Oh, you're thinking you're fine. Get over yourself."
There's nothing more annoying than someone going, "That's just a thought."
Fucking work. Believe me, I've tried.
It is so annoying though, isn't it? It's like when you go up to your wife and she's stressed. It's just a thought. So don't do that. Because when you're up here, it doesn't make sense. Like your in story, the ego, it doesn't. But then sometimes you kind of just have this insight. And it's like, you drop back into it. Sometimes it takes time. It's like, I love that, mate, and I love what you said. And it's kind of like, just know that it's okay. Right, it's okay.
and in practical terms, the difference that it makes is that whole falling out of your thinking business just happens a lot quicker. It's just you still, I can still wake up in the morning with my everything is shit goggles on. I can still and not notice, and I can be crashing around the house for an hour with my everything is shit goggles on, which means that everything I look at is shit because I've got my everything is shit goggles on, but I've not noticed that's how I've got up. It's just that I'm far more likely, because I think it's trusting. It's trusting the system, isn't it? It's trusting the wisdom in the system. It's trusting the that what they call the psychological immune system. We've got a physical immune system. Fucking hell, our bodies are amazing. Like when I went to talk at, in Newport to the doctors there, and like there was a mural on the wall about all these amazing things that the body does, and one of them is a picture of a liver. And it says the liver has 500 functions. 500 functions. And how many of those are we aware of? Absolutely fucking none.
Well, probably one that it filters the alcohol I used to drink. That's about it.
Yeah, I know, but you're not aware of it doing that, aren't you? Just does it. There's not like, you don't have to think, oh, well, I better start filtering my alcohol now. It just does it. And there are a bazillion processes going on inside of us right now. Right now. We're so finely balanced. And what we think that our psychology is somehow different from that. No, it's just as finely balanced. And the only thing that stopped, it would be like the equivalent of you going, well, I've had a few beers, and so I need to start squeezing my liver to get it's like ridiculous, and yet when we've got when we've got shit thinking going on,
Mm.
we're like, oh, I better sort this out. I better
Mm.
sort this out. And all we're doing is just piling thinking upon thinking upon thinking. You know, we're thinking about our thinking, and then we're thinking that we shouldn't be thinking about our thinking. So
It's
it's
wrong to
like,
think.
yeah, and the sooner you just let it go, then we self-correct. You know, we're lucky, us two. So we've got little kids, haven't we? And they're just like they're yeah, it doesn't feel it. But they sell so quickly, and it's like it's there right in front of you. It's there right in front of you. The way we actually work, you know, they're a lot closer to. I'm always saying to my daughter, I was like, you're so much better at this stuff than I am. You know, I can be going on at this problem for a long time. You just let it go.
Mm.
It's never a problem.
Yeah, you teach me.
Yeah,
'Cause I've
exactly.
forgotten.
Yeah, yeah.
I had this experience last week. I actually forgot to share with you. It was quite funny because you know, we all get caught out in it, and I was right. I was sitting at my desk thinking, right, it's July and August, notoriously quiet times for me anyway. They always have been. And I was like, right, shit, I need to get some stuff done, man. I've got to go get some clients. I've got to get some work going on. And all the while, I'm fine. Everything's fine, right? So I got my board out. I'm writing this down, writing, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I spent ages doing it, right? And it was all because I had a thought of, I need more clients. And then it was, I've got to do something. And then it was, what can I do? It's like, I need to do more. And it just snowballed into this like 3 hour planning session where nothing constructive happened at all. And then I went away for the weekend and I got this really good idea while I was away. I thought, yeah, I'm just going to do that. And we just don't give ourselves a chance to, like you said, trust, right?
Yeah, yeah. It is. I mean, one thing you were always on at me about was stopping doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, well, he says that. He says he goes and sits on the beach and doesn't do anything, but I'm sure really. And it's like, and I actually did it the other day. I went out for a walk on my own with absolutely no agenda. I didn't listen to any podcasts. I didn't do anything. I didn't even park a question on my subconscious. So I was just like, right, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to do nothing. And of course, that's the space that we need. That's the space we need. That's when we start having fresh ideas, or you know, even if they don't come then. There's something kind of nourishing about doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That then just, I don't know, it seems to get the cogs moving and behind the curtain, behind the veil where we can't see. Every now and again we get a little peek, don't we?
It's kind of like I don't know. It's like opening the floodgates. That's how it feels. It's always there. There's this constant stream of just beauty and creation and just this epic stuff, right? I mean, and let's be honest, we're the only beings in this whole probably world universe as we know it that have to think of our way out of a problem that's been thought created. I mean, it's kind of madness, right? But we open up that stream of thought like everything else does in the universe for inspiration and innate wisdom, or you know, whatever you want to call it. And they do. They just start flooding in, don't they?
Yeah, if you don't get in the way of it,
Mm.
it's what someone said. It's not magic. It's not magic, but it sure as hell feels magical. And it does when when you've got out of your own way, and you're like all of the career changes I've made have been terrifying, and yet they've just been that I've always just had that. I don't know whether I've always just trusted my common sense, like leaving medicine and going into this completely made up career of health informatics, and there was no way into it at all. There was nothing there whatsoever. There were no jobs to go for, nothing to apply for, no real qualifications you could get or anything. And yet, to me, it's like well, this makes total sense that like the NHS is getting computerized bit by bit, and fucking hell, nothing's changed since I.
Is it? I thought it was still writing on it.
Yeah, let's not go there. Let's not go there. And there was a really funny. I don't know if anyone watched Years and Years, but there was a health informatics joke in the very last episode where like everybody was like, I mean, people were actually kind of like physically plugged into the net themselves, and someone made a joke about like, oh yeah, the NHS is still not computerized. But it looked like it was happening. I was a junior doctor who had like a real interest in that.
Mm.
And to me, like my wisdom, my common sense said, well, that's enough, mate. Why wouldn't you be able to, it just made total sense to me. And it's been the same with all of the little career moves I've made, like the cycling magazine and stuff, and I've seen it with Ginevra and opening the shop. It's like you just do what feels right, and you just take steps towards it, and that opens the floodgates.
Mm-hmm.
That's like you get out of your own way, you stop questioning your intuition, and you do what feels right in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and then you keep on doing what feels right in the moment. And then the next thing you know, you're and it always turns out differently from how you'd imagine, because what you can imagine is bollocks. It's like this teeny tiny little, oh well, this is what my brain can come up with, where I could be going. And you're moving, and what comes out of the woodwork is way better than what your puny intellect can imagine.
Mate, you just absolutely hit the nail on the head. And what that reminded me of was the conversations. I don't know if you ever get this, but we've worked together a bit. And for me, the idea of creation beyond imagination, right? So kind of like the impossible, creating the impossible. And for me, when somebody comes to me, generally they'll say, "This is what I want. This is what I want," and I know that's what they think they want, right? Unless they've been primed by somebody first. Not sure that's the right way of saying it, but you know what I'm saying. That they come to me because, and you probably as well, that's what they think they want. But then when you start to kind of really explore with them, and you sort of explore their limitation or perceived limitation, like this kind of thought created kind of comfort zone, as it were, actually what they want is fucking way beyond what they think they wanted. And that for me is the essence of all of this, because we get so stuck in where we're at because of these thoughts and these limitations that we've adopted and innocently assumed. So tell me, mate, tell the guys, what is it so someone comes to you for a coaching session, right? What is it that they can expect from you, and what would you want them to get from coming to you?
Well, the beauty of working the way that we do is that, and I know from experience that you're the same, is that it's what's right in the moment. It's what's right in the moment. It's not like I'm turning up to a client with my A4 binder saying, right, right, today we're going to do this, and because that would be that, you've. I mean, I want to say that that famous quote is coming to mind, is like, be the change that you want to see. And as a coach, if I'm telling people how life works, I've got to be living life that way as well. And so when I'm with a client, to turn up with an A4 binder of ideas would be absolute nonsense. So it's always a case of finding out where someone is. I mean, I kind of describe it as my job is to almost get inside your head so I can see the world through your eyes. Like, I need to be able to see the world through your eyes, with the understanding that I have from experience and from I've learned, the insights I've had about the way that we and our psychology works and the way that change works. And it's as simple as that, really, is to experience the other person's flow of thought, and just kind of like looking for those little blockages, looking for the turbulence, because I spot the turbulence. It like sticks up like a little red flag. Oh, there's a bit of turbulence there. And then, so, oh no, I'm going to stretch the analogy again. So you like balloon dilatation. I go, no, let's not go there. But it's a case of, but it's, so, you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've talked to me about the you know, the concept of waking up and it being seeing the truth. And so it's a case of, when you spot blockages, going, hang on a minute, you know, is that true? Is that true? And asking questions, because there's no point me as a coach saying, this is the way it is, you're wrong, this is how it's right, because that's just, again, that's pointless, because we don't learn. The whole I've learned through insight. I've learned through, you know, the changes that have come in my life have all come from insight, from, you know, being sat on one little perch here and having this view of the world, and then you have a bit of coaching and you have an insight. Oh, yeah, never thought of it like that. And all of a sudden, you're on this little perch over here, and you've got a totally different look. And it's not just because you've moved from one perch to another perch. It's not just the problem that you see differently. It's fucking everything. That's why when people have coaching and they go, and, you know, they turn up a couple of weeks later and they go, oh yeah, I played really great tennis. And it's like, yeah. You know, and it's like, people don't make the connection. It's like, well, it's because you've become better aligned with the way the world actually works by having this insight, because that's what an insight is. It's seeing, it's, you know, lifting the veil a little bit more to see the actual truth of our experience. And it's not something that can be taken away. You know, once you have an insight, it's like you've had it. You've moved on. You've seen. You're seeing everything slightly differently.
Yeah, you're right, man. It reminds me of two things, actually. One of them being, just turn my light on. Eventually, all you're going to see is an eyes and a set of teeth.
I've got my light on quick.
It's clearly not even working. Hang on.
At least you're not turning the Nintendo on.
How very dare you?
Oh no, I've said the wrong one, haven't I? Sorry. Gamer boy.
So it reminds me of two things, right? And one of them, I probably can't remember them both now, but one of them was something, I think it was in the book called Crazy Good by Steve Chandler. And he was explaining how sportsmen get these like sort of blocks and how their performance lapses. You know, you can have somebody who's doing 400-meter run, right? And in training, they're doing like 45, 44 seconds, which I know is quite quick. But when it comes to the actual day, they're up in the 48s, 49s, sometimes even 50s. And he's sort of asking the question, well, why is that? How can that be the case? You know, if your body is capable of that, how can you perform so poorly on a day? And what he found with working with these coaches was that they start thinking about it. They think about their performance. Like you're saying about a tennis player, that's what reminded me. Start thinking about their performance. And they're already within limitation straight away. They're analysing, they're overthinking. And the body knows its patterns. It knows exactly what it needs to do. But yet we get in a way. And that's kind of like the same sort of thing as, for me, as clarity, inspiration, or being up in your head and thinking your way out of a problem that actually doesn't reality exist. You know.
Maybe it's because I learned the piano when I was young. Because there was a real That's just come to me, the performance thing, because I learned piano from age 7, and I was always doing things like playing in concerts at school, stuff like that, and I knew, I can still remember now, because I still play from time to time, that when I was performing, there'd be all manner of shit popping in every now and again, you know.
Yeah.
and but but I just knew from experience and also instinctively that if I'm thinking about the bit that's over, the difficult bit that's over the page, I'm going to fuck up the bit I'm playing right now. You know, it just makes no sense whatsoever
No,
to go down that route. Makes no
no.
sense whatsoever. But you know, it's fine in the rest of life. We can do it.
It reminds me so much because I used to do the same. I used to play classical guitar, and I could I could play, you know, eyes closed in my room. But as soon as I got into that concert hall and
Yeah,
I'm playing in front of all these people, I'm
yeah.
starting to overthink it. But do you know what I remember doing as a kid? In sort of intuitively, just sitting there quietly in front of everyone, just letting things
Mm,
settle a bit. And that's just reminded me of that I used to do it just instinctively, right? We kind
yeah,
of know this,
yeah. I mean that, like before I came across the 3Ps, I've been speaking in front of audiences about career change for a decade, and it took me a while. But after a few years, I would I'd be about to go out on stage, and I'd be, you know, like heart slamming in my ears, heart racing, you know, really nervous, and even before somebody had spelled out the way it works to me, I'd already kind of clocked. It's like, well, you know, this is a sensation. This is a sensation, and um, it's actually a sensation that I don't get to have very often. I only get to have this sensation when I'm about to go and speak out on the stage. And so, and and I just kind of like coupled it with how much I enjoy speaking in front of audiences. So be like, well, I've got this sensation. That must mean I'm about to have a really fun hour in front of an audience. And so, you know, a completely different take on that sensation. But yeah, I don't know why that came up, but the whole performance thing, I guess.
Mm. Yeah, again, it kind of, I love these conversations because they tend to just flow and things come to you. Because what just came to me then was something I was speaking to Garrett Kramer about, funny enough.
Just gonna turn my light on. Just turned the
Interesting
light on.
guy. If no one knows who Garrett Kramer is, you want your mind to be blown or challenged, go and listen to Garrett Kramer. But you know, I was talking to him. We're having this kind of back and forth, and it's something that occurred to me a long time ago. It's kind of like, does anxiety exist? Does depression exist? Does worry exist? Does happiness exist? Does any of this stuff actually exist? Right? And if you really think, if when I was really thinking about it, when I was really kind of considering it, what I started to see, and I'd love your input on this, Giles, or your opinion on this, was that the idea of these feelings have been labeled, right? So we've labeled these feelings as good, bad, happy, not happy, more of, less of, positive, negative, which is all completely made up. It's conceptual. Right? It's been experienced, therefore we've labeled it. And if somebody's constantly having that experience, therefore they must have a problem. And when you really consider the truth behind your experience, the true self doesn't experience these things necessarily. We're kind of experiencing them within the ego. You kind of sort of think it's made up. What if anxiety isn't bad or negative or wrong? If it's
Mm.
just as legitimate as every other emotion, you know? I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, it's funny when you start, you kind of like, you get into the world of semantics and labels, don't you? And it's like, well, we've given these things, you know, words, language. It's the best that we can do, but it's like it's a collection of experiences.
Mm.
But yeah, you know, it's pr- pr- probably all part of this homeostasis that's going, this intricate balancing act. So, feelings of any description are a very, very reliable. They got one job, haven't they? And it's to tell us what's on the other side of the coin. It's like, well, if you've got this feeling, then the flow of thought right now has got this flavour. That's all it's saying. Whatever feeling you're having, that the flow of thought that's coming through you in that moment, and as we know, it can change like that, has got that particular flavour. And I know when I first got into this stuff, I was incredibly skeptical about the mental illness side of things. And or that, I've had a really fucking traditional background here, although I do remember when I did psychiatry that I think I sided more with the anti-psychiatry movement. That I clocked at the time that it was like they were just basically clumping together a bunch of feelings and going, oh yeah, that's that, you've got that. Which just seemed a bit bonkers. But I know that Bill Pettit, for instance, and the first time I heard Bill Pettit, I was like, whoa, that's a bit out there. And then I met him. Speak at the Three Principles Conference, and met him. And it's like, yeah. And he talks about depression as almost like being a trip switch.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the psychology. So if we go back to what we were talking about earlier, and the fact that it's not one thought, it's not an identity, it's the same thought that's occurring over and over and over again because of turbulence in the flow, then that blockage gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And before disaster strikes, the system shuts down. It's like a fuse. And he talks about, I don't know if he talks about it being a fuse, but I've definitely heard him talk about it in terms of being a trip switch. And I'm going to have to, I'm sure I will spend more time listening to the wonderful Dr. Bill Pettit, but that makes total, knowing what I know, because it's, all we can talk about is what we've seen for ourselves, isn't it? And it's just like, well, yeah, hang on a minute. If I know that to be true, I used to listen to, sorry, I'm all over the place here, but I used to listen to a lot of Mike Dooley. Have you heard of Mike Dooley?
No.
He's the Notes from the Universe guy.
Okay.
It's like he'd send a little note from the university, email it to you every day. And I've listened to a few of his audio programs, and he'd always say, and I never really got it. He'd always encourage people to follow things through logically themselves, to go as far back and as simple and basic as they possibly can to what they know to be true without a shadow of a doubt for themselves, what they've experienced, and then to make some logical, follow it through. And I think it's what Garrett Kramer talks about when he's always going on about look to your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Look to your own experience. So you take something back to as a fundamental truth that you know without a shadow of a doubt. Well, then that's something you can build on. That's something that you can build on. And so this idea of depression being a trip switch, if I'm it fits basically. It fits with the inside out understanding, doesn't it?
It does, and it's funny because when I first got into this conversation about 3Ps, whatever you call it, I know a lot of people call it different things, but for me, if someone had said to me depression or anxiety doesn't exist, I'd have just told them to fuck off. Half, mate, I feel like I'm anxious. What are you talking about? Jog on. And that would have probably made me angry, right? Because obviously it was an egoic response to something that I believed was happening, which kind of says everything we need to know, doesn't it? It's something I believe was happening. And I think what really changed for me, it's kind of along the similar lines we were talking about earlier. What really changed for me was that I started to see that I wasn't always like that. Didn't always feel like that. It's like I'm just anxious, but then there's times where I'm actually not anxious right now. don't feel anxious right now. But I was really unaware of those times until I was kind of made aware of it. And there was something else I was going to say that Garrett said, but I can't remember. What's for you?
Is it always true? Oh, that's very Katie Byron, isn't it? Is it always true? I had that. I just had this picture of my 5-year-old with tears streaming down her face this morning because we were leaving the house and we had to have a wee before we were leaving for a long car journey, and of course she didn't want to have one, and I'd given her plenty of warning. I was like, we can do it my way or your way, and my way is like literally picking her up and sitting her on the toilet. My way, Daddy. All right, my way. And then procrastinating and negotiating and fucking around and disappearing and running away. And, I let it go on for a while. And then I just, I was like, right, okay, my way then. And she was there with tears streaming down her face. And she was like, but I wanted to do it my way. And I said to her, well, you missed your opportunity, didn't you? We talk a lot about opportunities. You've got to take your opportunities when they're there, and her response was quite telling, because her response was, scream, world ending. This was, I always miss my opportunity, and I thought, I'm not going to let that go. And I'm like, mate, you don't. Like 99 times out of 100, you take your opportunities. It seems like you miss all your opportunities. And I didn't, obviously, I'm not going to start schooling my daughter about the goggles she's wearing, but she had her I miss my opportunities goggles on. So to her, it was a case of, I always miss my opportunities. This is my reality. This is this all-encompassing thing, and that's what I love about them. They don't play by half, do they? They absolutely throw themselves into it. 5 minutes later, she's had the way.
We haven't taught them the idea exactly that. It's quite funny. From Essex, obviously we're potty training Albert, and before we left, we're like, do you need a wee? Right, so no. Albert, do you need a wee? He's like, no. So we're going to have a wee anyway. Didn't want to do it. We did it. And he did actually have a wee, right? But we put him on the swing, and he got water in his shorts. And I was like, Albert, is that wee? He's like, no. It's from, he pointed towards the swing, so I knew what it was. And when we got home, he'd done a wee. He'd done a wee with his pants, right? And it was because 2-hour journey, bless him. He didn't, and he was we're totally cool about it. It's absolutely fine. I was like, Albert, have you done a wee? He's like, no. It's water from the swing. It's like, mate, that was like 2.5 hours ago. It's not that much. It's like, it's not water from the swing.
Brilliant.
Absolutely genius. But they haven't learned yet. I think my point being is that they haven't learned yet that there's the past affects their present, right? There's no understanding of that. It's just right now, how am I feeling? And when we point people back to that place, back to truth, it changes so often, and that's what I love about it. It's just like it's just super cool experience. So I'm also aware, mate, that we've been here an hour now, and I could just talk about this all day.
Yeah.
I literally could just keep going.
Yeah, let's do another one.
I think we should. Actually, do you know what? If anyone's got any questions, I know that what people will say, yes, let's do this again. And I think we should, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's fun.
What I want to do with you is what I'm going to start doing with anyone I interview. And I thought it might. So I was thinking about some words that, since I've known you, some things that I thought I would question you on. Right. So this is the last little thing. It's going to take literally a minute, but there's 2 words. Right. You know this game. There's 2 words. I'm going to say them very quickly. I want you to tell me which one comes into your mind first.
So it's like word association?
Basically, yeah. So
okay,
the first 2 are walking or cycling, and you've got to give me an answer as quickly as possible.
Walking.
Carbs or protein?
Protein.
3 Ps or coaching?
3 Ps.
Oh, that was so slow. You're not allowed to. I don't know, man. I feel like I need to pause. You need a pause. Films or box sets?
Say again, I didn't hear that one.
Films or box sets?
Films.
Laugh or cry?
Laugh.
Oh, damn it. Doctor or nurse?
Doctor.
Dirty mind when I was thinking about
I don't know what the context of that one was, son.
You don't want to know. Curry or Chinese?
Curry.
Of course. Love or fear?
Love.
Fun or serious?
Fun.
All right. All right. Well done, mate. You passed. You're allowed back on.
Oh, I'm allowed back on, am I? Okay.
Hang
Well,
on.
I'm already writing down my list of ones to ask you. That's what we're doing now.
Oh no. Oh dear. So I think there's just I'm just going to whiz down just the comments, guys. I know it's been. I mean, I just love this one tonight. So Kim's put, I think we try to micromanage our lives instead of free flowing, allowing ourselves to explore what's coming. Absolutely. And Alex has said, what could help us flip our negative, depressive thoughts into positive, empowering thought?
See both of them as a fiction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, that one, isn't it? What's your answer? And I'll give mine.
Well, it would be to if this was a client, I'd be looking to take a step back from the content of that thinking and look more at the fact of thinking. Look at the nature of thought, because it's upstream of content of thought, and if you work upstream and you get an understanding of the way the world works upstream, then the shit downstream just sorts itself out.
Yes, mate, bang on. I mean, bang on exactly what I would say, really. And because for me, when I hear a question like that, and Alex, that is such an absolutely wicked question. You know, what could help us flip our negative, depressive thoughts into positive, empowering thought? For me, and we've discussed this before, something I understand to be true is if we ask a question, the ego will need an answer, right? So when we ask a question from ego, which is that's obviously an egoic question for me, because it's what could help us flip our negative, depressive thoughts. So there's a belief there that some thoughts are negative or depressive, right? So therefore, we need to look for the opposite. Well, what if there is no such thing as a negative, depressive thought? What if it doesn't need an answer? And that's probably where I would go with that. Difficult outside of context, obviously. Well, you can do what everyone else does: get pissed and do a line, and you'll be fine.
Hey, we got a whole podcast on that, haven't we? About not getting pissed. But anyway, that's
alcohol free.
Little teaser for you. Little teaser for you there, guys.
Mate, I've got so much love for you, Giles. I'm so glad you came on,
buddy. Yeah.
Absolutely wicked. I honestly have no idea how to close this meeting other than to just close it and hope for the best. So,
all right. Well, whoever's watching, I've got no idea because I haven't even got Facebook open or anything. So, well, love to you all, wherever you are.
Consistent 18, 20 people on, which is fantastic. And I will record the video if anyone wants to share it with any of their friends. You can share it outside the group. I'm more than happy with that, as long as Giles is happy with that.
Yeah, by all means.
Use it as much as you like. And yeah, mate, thank you so much. Is there
Very welcome.
You've got 3 words.
Oh God,
to part on.
Fucking little
3 words to part on. If you were the last dying words, right? You're just about to die. You're just about to clog your clogs.
You want to save that for podcast 3 or 4 or something?
I've got better ones than this. This is warming up.
Oh,
what 3 words would you share with the world? And they're your last 3. You've said your goodbyes to everyone else, so they're fine.
Okay.
So what would you say?
You are love. Boom, mic drop.
That's 6.
Oh.
Love it, mate. You are love. What else do we need? Thank you so much, mate. And thanks for everybody listening.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
You're very welcome. I'll speak to you very, very soon, guys. Thanks, Giles.
All right. Bye.